Hey, everybody.
All right, call the meeting to order. This is the Board of Commissioners work session, February 18th, 2020. This meeting is designed as a work session for board members to receive, review, and discuss information prepared by the staff. Only the staff and board members are allowed to speak during this meeting without express special permission. Citizens are reminded that there is an opportunity during the public comment period of regular board meetings occurring during the first Tuesday of each month for questionings and concerns, and citizens are welcome to contact the mayor or board at any other times by phone or email. So welcome. I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. We got, I think, 6 items on the agenda, and we'll get right into it. First one is a proclamation. I believe representing Wake Electric here tonight is Vice President of Engineering and Operations, Don Bowman. I have that right?
That's right. Thank you.
I got a little something to present to you, but if anything you want to say first, anything?
Sure. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the town of Rolesville. Wake Electric is a not-for-profit, member-owned cooperative serving areas that go all the way from northern Selma to the Virginia line, and a bulk of it that goes between Roseville and Lewisburg that we serve. And thanks to the communities of Wake Forest and Roseville that are growing at such a pace, that is really good for Wake Electric too. It's good for our memberships as well. So we appreciate all the support and all the good relationship we have with you folks. And one of the reasons I'm here today is just to talk to you about one of the big initiatives that Wake Electric is doing. One of the good things about growth, as you know, is it brings more business and its economic development for an electric utility. Just residential growth alone does certain things to our load profile. It just keeps adding to the peak, and we got to obviously continue to build power plants and support those peaks. And so we're always looking for different scenarios that we can sell off-peak power as well, because that's plant that's already built, just needs to be used. And electric vehicles have really proven to us to really be an incentive for members of ours to change their habits on when they charge and when they plug, and it's been such a great opportunity. So imagine we take a load that we've never sold before, and now people are plugging in. If they're plugging in off peak, that's sort of like free power for us to provide, because it's there for us to use anyway. So we have just initiated several different rates for our members that all you have to do is show a proof of purchase for it that you have an electric vehicle. You automatically get a whole home discount on your entire electric bill any time between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. We hope that incents our members to charge in the middle of the night. And we give them a pretty deep discount too if you continue to show us that you're willing to move the load around and get all our peaks. All that's good. What we want to make sure everybody knows, we think that's good for the environment. We think that's good for our members because they're saving money on vehicle charging. And it's obviously good for us because we're selling kilowatt hours that we've never sold before. So it's a great initiative for us. And so one of the things that we're trying to overcome is just the range anxiety of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles seem that if anybody's ever driven one, the performance is there. And everybody likes the feel and likes the drivability of it. But a lot of people have this range anxiety is, will I be able to get there? Will there be a place for me to charge? The good thing about the range today is that we feel like most everybody is going to leave their house every single day with a full charge. It's a different mentality where sometimes you have to get up, go to work, I got to stop by the gas station first. That should never be the case. You should never, if you're just driving locally, you probably never will need a charge. But by Wake Electric, we're just putting charging stations around our territory to give the people a comfort that if you need a charge, there'll be some in great locations. And so I was pleased that Mr. Arnold approached Wake Electric with an interest in putting a charging station out there. And so it was our pleasure to offer the charging, the installation, and charging station. And we don't intend at this point to ever charge for the power that you use to charge there. So tonight, one of the other things that Wake Electric did was we bought 2 Tesla Model 3s, put our Wake logo on it, and our purpose is to get that out in the public so people see the cars on the road. That's really not a problem around here. We're starting to see them all over the place. But if anybody ever, if any of the commissioners or town staff would ever want to test drive it, come over to Wake drive our vehicles and let you feel what it feels like. I brought it tonight and it's plugged outside, so I'll stick around just a little bit if anybody wants to take a break and go see it plugged in. I plugged in when I first got here, and everything's done by an app, and so far I've gotten 2 kilowatt hours from Wake Electric while I'm charged out there to bring my car. But again, it's a great initiative for us. We're here to answer questions for our members because we're excited about this transformation that's happening with electric vehicles, and we're glad to be able to put one right in front of the town hall here.
Very cool.
I want to add, I have 2 friends I go to church with that both have the Teslas, and they got on the time of use at their house, and both said that their electric bills went up less than $10 a month.
Yeah, and they're not paying for gas.
And they're not paying for gas or oil changes.
Right.
So, tell you what,
And like I said, believe it or not, that's really good for us. I mean, we're not interested in raising our peak. We want to raise the off-peak price, so we're willing to give our members incentive to do that.
How many customers do you have in Rolesville?
Oh goodness, that's a great question. We serve 47,000 total. I don't know exactly how many are within the city limits, but I'm willing to check that out because I think that'd be a good one.
Just curious. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Don. And we have a proclamation here for you, but before I do that, Kelly, anything you want to say?
No, I'm pleased. As Don knows, I came over and started bothering him a little bit because Roseville wasn't on the grid. We kind of missed our opportunity at some point. So we're on the grid now, and I think it's a really good opportunity for Roseville citizens. So thank you.
Yeah,
Great
thanks.
idea.
This is a proclamation of the town of Rolesville recognizing Wake Electric. Whereas it is a nonprofit electric utility company headquarters in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and whereas Wake Electric Membership Corporation is one of Rolesville's energy providers and partner with the town of Rolesville, and whereas Rolesville was one of the last remaining municipalities in Wake County without an electric vehicle charging station, and whereas more and more citizens are driving electric and hybrid vehicles, and a increasing number of electric and hybrid vehicle options are being made available by car manufacturers. Whereas Wake Electric Membership Corporation provides free electric vehicle charging stations to the public. Now, therefore, the town of Rolesville would like to recognize and express its gratitude to Wake Electric for installing a new electric vehicle charging station at the corner of Main Street and South Town Circle in the parking lot of the town hall, therefore allowing Rolesville to join the neighboring municipalities by having a public available charging station to serve town residents and visitors alike. In witness of whereof, I do hereby set in my hand and cause the seal of Rolesville to be affixed on this, the 8th day of February 2020. Thank you very much. And I think I saw that one of your vehicles. Didn't you give the chief of Rolesville a fire one for a while?
I've offered this to a lot of public officials, so we want to have people out there in these vehicles
Yeah.
and experience it. We've been having some test driving days. We've actually had 4 events where we invited all of our members to come in, and we invited the members that had their electric vehicles. They could show them off and just talk about, because if you ever want to know about an electric vehicle, ask an owner, because they can't stop talking about it. So we allowed that to happen, but we also took test drives, and we know we've sold at least 3 or 4 for Tesla.
It's a real weird vehicle without, all the instruments and stuff. You just have a computer screen. And that would take some getting used to, I think.
I just went to the Consumer Electronics Show. I didn't go, but we went, Jim Mangan went to the Consumer Electronics Show, and what they're doing with automation of vehicles was just scary to death. But the next generation of BMW electric vehicle, when it goes into autonomous mode, you can actually turn the driver's seat around and face the back.
Oh, boy. Yeah, no.
You talk about getting used to it.
Well, thanks. I'm going to come around and present you with this.
Wow. That's different.
I understand the range now with the extra battery or the stronger battery is over 300 miles.
It is. You can get an extra range for $325, and the base is about $220. So even that gives you comfort.
That's awesome. So I can get the carrying back.
Tell you one thing, I'd like to save my nickels and dimes. I'd like to have a big sale where I get commission. I'd buy one.
That's awesome.
And they're quiet. It's on that.
Very quiet. I haven't heard it.
0 to 60 in like 5 seconds.
It's dangerous.
Okay. Pavement Conditions Index Report. This should be exciting. We've kind of been waiting. I've been waiting for this one every day, ever since I read it a couple of days ago. So, you know, it's all yours.
Please don't read the whole thing, Judge. I didn't think I was going to ever finish.
Well, that was our whole presentation, just to read it word for word.
I know where you live.
So thank you, Mayor and the Commissioners, for this time tonight to go over the Pavement Condition Index report. Withers Revenel performed that report. I'm going to turn it over to Joe and Jacob with Withers and let them kind of give you a brief update on that report. It's a brief update. And you just push that over and it'll go right through your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing us to be here. We worked with JG and Kelly to kind of plan for the survey that we conducted and have worked with them throughout the process. We did the survey, and as you'll see later in our presentation, we also put together a bid package so that we could put some resurfacing down and get some new pavement. So to continue on the transportation theme for this evening, we're going to go through our pavement condition survey, the results, and then also talk about the resurfacing project that we just got bids back on today. My name's Joe Turner. I've been with Withers Ravenel just over 3 years now, but have a DOT experience background. Worked with the state just about 10 years, but overall got about 14 years of experience in this engineering field. And then Jacob Smith is here with me.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jacob Smith. So I just graduated from Virginia Tech last May. And yeah, go Hokies. But so I started with Withers this summer. If you count the internship I did the year before, it's been about a year of experience. But a lot of the work that I've done has been doing pavement condition surveys. When I was interning last summer, they had just finished the Smithfield one, so I helped out a lot with the logistics of that one. And then I was obviously here from start to finish for this pavement condition survey. So yeah.
Yeah, so Jacob helped a lot on the Paver, the software side of things that we'll cover here soon. In addition to both Jacob and I, which we did come out and perform the survey, we also had several of our other crew members with various years of experience come out and help with us. It's and I'll speak more to kind of the process, when we come out and do the survey. But really, the purpose of the pavement condition survey is, the pavement is a living, breathing thing. It degrades over time. You put it down, it's nice and smooth, and then after harsh winters and bad winters, it degrades. So we really recommend doing a survey like this every 4 to 7 years to get a good pulse on your pavement system. And the results, they help municipalities set up CIPs. And then also allow public works departments to perform maintenance. We provided a geodatabase for the town so that their public works department could go out and search for alligator cracks or potholes specifically, if that's what they want to do to help out and kind of assist with the resurfacing programs. And we offer an unbiased perspective instead of somebody coming out with a town that may have an idea of where the bad parts are. We come out, and we don't necessarily worry about the location. It's something that everywhere we go and look, we base it all off what we see. So we think that helps out in setting up those CIP projects. We met with JG and Kelly during our kickoff meeting to check out and see what y'all's needs were. We also coordinated public works operations generally in the fall time when we started. There's leaf pickup that we've got to deal with, making sure that the road is clear so that we can do a proper survey. So we make sure that we coordinate with the town and get that stuff down so that we can avoid those items. We also discussed pavement rehab options. Certain municipalities don't like pavement preservation, where you may put down a chip seal, which leaves a lot of gravel behind. So we really encourage municipalities to be open to pavement preservation options. That's really where your bang for your buck is, instead of going out and overlaying a road. Pavement is very expensive, and so being able to preserve that pavement while it's still in good condition is certainly important and a good use of the municipality's money. And then we also determine trouble spots, where are kind of the worst roads, are there any issues that we need to be looking out for? And then we check and see if there's any road classifications. DOT has a tiered classification. You got highways, NCUS routes, and then secondary roads, and each of those get a priority. So we check and make sure that if there's a priority listing here for the municipality. And then we also, all of our survey is GIS related. We do the survey and perform it on a tablet. And so all that information, it's important to get updated center lines from the municipality to make sure that our report is accurate. And I mentioned, what we do out. So we've got the driver, which is the pavement expert, and the passenger is the data entry person. We enter our stuff in on a tablet. We used ArcGIS Collector app. The survey vehicle, we maintain a 5 to 10 mile-an-hour speed, because we're visually looking at the road and checking for those distresses, naming those distresses, and then putting that into the tablet. So we've got to kind of take it slow. We do have amber lights, vehicle-mounted signs as well, and then like I said, we have the tablet data for data entry, and then a measuring wheel. We do go out and get measure widths for roadways, so that we have an idea of how much pavement, if we're putting together an estimate. We get that information. We provide a hard copy, and then we have a hard copy of the Powellville map. So just in case the data is slow on our tablet, we have something to go about and use, from a concrete standpoint. So that's really, what we do from a survey standpoint. We look for alligator cracking, transverse cracking. We care about how much there is and the severity of that cracking. So we're inputting all of that information. We look at patching. Bleeding is a type of distress in certain pavements. Weathering, if a pavement's been down long enough, it starts to wear and weather a certain way. Rutting, which is a structural failure, generally see in like your tire, or your wheel marks in the road, roads that have the real bad rutting. And then we do bumps and sags. We also check for curb and gutter. What type of curb and gutter you guys have? We do the street widths, which I mentioned, and then sidewalk, locations on where the sidewalk is. And here's some examples that we have, some cracking there on that large picture, patches, bumps and sags. You may have some bumps and sags where utilities are, or you get trees next to the road. The roots will pop that pavement up. You got to watch out for that. And then little segment on weathering there where you have basically the gravel starts being exposed in the pavement. And that's something to take a look at. This is our collector interface. We GPS the distresses based on type, and they're assigned to a street segment. So all of the roads in Rolesville had distresses assigned to that location where they're at. And then, we capture the specific data, so length and then the severity of the distress. So for the results here, we surveyed approximately 32.5 miles of roadway, and you guys came back with a great overall PCI score. There were a lot of roads that were new with your new developments coming in. And then we did notice a lot of roads that were missing the top lift. So those things will be getting the top lift of asphalt very soon. And so those will be put into commission. And so something that, those are all roads that will be added to your maintenance routes. Like I said, you had really good PCI. Over 75% of the roadway network fell within the good category, which is excellent. And then over 95% of the roadway network was over the critical PCI 55. And that's important when you guys are choosing which roads to do in the future. That critical PCI, and Jacob will show you here, we'll explain why that's important. Because pavement has a life, and once you reach a certain point in that life, the life of that pavement drops off critically, and that PCI 55 is generally where that spot is. And I'll let Jacob talk about the Paver Analytics, and then also how Paver suggests what it suggests, and then talk about the results with the budgetary stuff that we talked about in the report.
All right, so going over what Joe had just discussed, this Paver is a program. It's how we determined the PCI. Obviously, you guys had a great score. So it was created by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers back in the 70s, just to kind of help them get a general idea of their road quality that they have. So what it does is it takes in the shapefile that we have. Obviously, we got the GIS shapefiles from you guys, and then from there, after we input all the distresses into the tablet, we can create a XML distress file, and then we can combine those, and that helps us get a road network with all the distresses attached to each street section. And then, so once that's done, we can generate a PCI. And so what I have here is just a picture representing how it creates that PCI. So the circled road section right there, you can see there's a few distresses on it. I believe it's alligator cracking, there's some longitudinal cracking, and then I believe some patching. And so what it does is, with the severity and then also the length and or square footage surface area of that, whatever that distress is, it calculates a deduction. So all roads start at 100, and then once it calculates that deduction, you just subtract from 100, and that is what allows you to generate the PCI value of that street section. And so, as Joe was saying earlier, talking about the PCI, this figure right here kind of shows you the life of a roadway. It starts off at 100 right when that final lift is put on. You have right at the very beginning, usually over the first year, you have kind of a sharp decline, usually back down to around 90, a 90 PCI score. And then it sort of levels out for a period, and then once it reaches that critical PCI of 55, you can see that it drastically drops down in a very short period of time. So right at that critical PCI, the way that you can kind of understand why they call it the critical PCI is at that critical PCI, if it costs $1 to rehabilitate that road, just that short while afterwards, it could cost $4 to $5. Obviously, that's just like a multiplier. So
I must have missed it. What does PCI mean?
A pavement condition index.
Okay.
And it's the score that the roads receive during our survey.
So, sorry about that. I should have clarified there for
I
you.
figured you said it and I missed it.
I know I'm saying it a lot. But yeah, so it could cost 4 to 5 times more if you leave that road alone and don't rehabilitate it. And so after that Paver, we can then create budget scenarios where it takes all the street sections with all the distresses on it, and you can input a budget, and it'll spit out what roads need what repair types. And so the way Paver works, it prioritizes these 4 PCI models. So there's stopgap, local preventative, global preventative, and major repairs. And this is the order in which it prioritizes the money that you have in the budget. So stopgap, this is for roads that are under the critical PCI, where you may not have enough money to completely repair that roadway, but you just want to keep it functioning to where people can still drive on it without tearing up their tires, basically. Local preventative is just smaller preventative like functions, like crack sealing on roads that just have smaller spots. Global preventative would be something like putting an overlay over the entire street section, and both of these preventative are for street sections above that critical PCI. And then you have major repairs, which would involve basically ripping the whole road out, taking all the structure out, and replacing that. And obviously that's gonna cost you a lot of money, so it can't go very far. Say you only had 200,000, you could probably only do 1 or 2 roadways. And so the budget scenarios that we ran, we had 3 20-year plans, and I was able to set it to where at the end of that 20-year plan, we had a desired overall PCI score. As stated earlier, you guys, as of right now, have an 89 PCI score, which is very good. But as you can see here, in order to maintain just an 80 PCI over that 20-year period, you'd have to put $760,000 into your budget every single year. And then on obviously the other end of that, just to maintain a 60 PCI, you would have to have about $150,000, which is still substantial for certain townships. So as you can see with this, to maintain the 60 PCI, there's not enough money to do any major repairs. So all of those roads that have a failing grade under the critical PCI are basically just left alone to eventually deteriorate down to 0. So nothing can be done about those roads. For PCI of 80, a lot of the funding is allotted to replace those failing roads at the beginning, just to bring them back up above that critical PCI, and then performing a lot of preventative maintenance and trying to stay away from your stopgap, which that just basically throwing money away.
And I think, just to kind of sum Jacob, I think it's just really important for you guys to consider, what you want to do. I think there are a lot of options out there to overlay a road, and I think that this just kind of shows you the type of money, and we'll talk about the bid package that we put together, but I think that it's just important that you guys see the type of money that it would cost to maintain something, and I think it's important to for the it's important for the municipality to consider that. Go ahead, Jake.
Okay. And now I'm going to get into the 2020 resurfacing project that we just received bids on. So the town was able to come to us with certain areas that they wanted to address first. So we had Granite Saddle and Granite Creek Drive, which is missing that final lift of pavement on it. It's in relatively good condition right now, but that still needs to be addressed. Bowling Drive, which I've heard is pretty infamous around here, it's in very, very poor condition. It actually had a PCI of 8. So.
Wait a minute, what were the first 2 streets you said?
Granite Saddle and Granite Creek Drive.
Where the trailers are?
So
No. That's
Granite Falls.
That's the Granite
Yeah.
Falls part. So,
Is that worse than bowling? What'd you say? Bowling?
They're not final. They don't have the final.
They
cut
just
on
need that
Yeah.
final
Sorry.
inch of
Okay,
lift.
that's why I was like, wait, that street, bowling what?
yeah, bowling is
Bowling
over.
is
That's
in bad
actually
shape.
awful.
Yeah,
that street.
bowling is the one that, as I said, it had a PCI score of 8.
On a rainy
which-
day, you could disappear on that street.
Yeah.
in a hole. It's so bad.
Quite possible. I was actually out there when we surveyed that street, and I hadn't seen it before, and I was just like, wow, this is just.
I know I stepped back to Granite Falls.
Yeah, I thought Eastwood Homes was responsible.
I was gonna say, it's not,
So
Building?
at the end of the day, we were provided a bond in 2014 with expiration of 1 year, we didn't use it
To fix those granite streets?
to finalize it. To finish it. So that's expired. And those citizens, that street's been built out for several years now, and those citizens are dodging manholes and water pits. So,
If we had a
so, in my opinion, it's the right thing, it needs to be done. There's no other legal remedy.
Right, if the bond expired.
That's why it's on the list.
Kelly, I have a question for you. Are there any other streets that are currently bonded right now that we have to be aware of?
Right now, as introduced earlier, there are a handful that we have to make sure we watch and maintain. Developer, our policy at this stage is when we allow the developer to put in the road without the final lift until 75% of development's built out. And then they're supposed to go back.
Because the trucks going in there.
That one got caught in a recession kind of thing, and then we negotiated to sell it, and we got a bond. We didn't do it, use it. So our challenge with that policy, quite frankly, I understand the benefit of not putting construction traffic on a new street, but the challenge is keeping up and making sure it gets done.
Okay,
So right now, we're on top of it. We are on top of it. There's probably gonna be 3 more done this year that need to be done, because it's 75% developed. And our goal is to make sure they do it.
are any of those in Carlton Point?
Carlton Point got done last summer that were qualified. They got completed last year, so I don't know, I cannot go back and tell you right
And
now.
I am aware of that because I know they're still doing construction over there.
Right.
And like you said, I know they're trying not to run
Right.
trucks over new roads repeatedly, but they're not done. So what does that mean?
If they've met that 75% threshold, we'll notify them to get it done. But I know last year they did a series of streets, they had to get them completed. So there still are some that still have construction ongoing, and they still don't need to put the lift on
Not yet, anyway.
at this stage.
Right, but what is that main street I'm thinking of in Carlton Point?
Virginia Water?
No.
Virginia Water
When
drives
it
the main
ends Virginia Water and it turns into something else.
Yeah, the long one.
Yeah.
that's new. It's still, we're on, Michelle, I guess what I'm saying is, if you see something you think it has more, let me know what the name of the street is.
Mhm.
I'll let you know when it should be done, but I think we've got everything done, Carlton.
Bendemeer, is that what you?
Yes, Bendemeer.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I guess I'm asking, yes, you answered the question, but if you had that constant, those trucks are running over a new street and they're still doing construction, that wear and tear is now,
That's right, and so that,
that's what I'm trying to get
there's a
at.
give and take in the policy.
Okay.
We're small enough, we can keep up on it, generally. We're small enough, we can keep up on it. Bigger cities don't do that. Bigger cities, you do it because you can't keep on chasing.
Okay.
In active cities. So we are small enough, we can do it. And it is beneficial to our PCI, because you get the lift at the last, and then it lasts longer. So as long as we can keep up on it, I'm okay with it. I'm just making sure we are.
So when do we take ownership of the street?
After a year after the final lift.
So we should never take ownership unless it has the final lift on it,
That's
right?
Exactly.
After the final lift, they have 1 year warranty. And then after that 1 year, then we're past the warranty on it.
We take ownership, DOT doesn't take ownership.
If it's a local street, most all the streets
It's
that are
ours.
in New Development are ours.
So what's the paperwork to take ownership? Do you have to,
I think, I don't know if there's a paperwork, I know it's a time period. I don't know if there's something that we give to the developer or not, I would have to.
so I'm just wondering, it looks like to me we would do an inspection before that.
Oh, yeah, we do.
we take the ownership.
We do go out to do inspection.
I was gonna say too, if I may, there's also an inspection done prior to the final lift being installed, so that if there are those large trucks
Right.
coming on, then the developer still is responsible for repairing those streets
That's right.
before that final lift comes on as well.
I think that happened, something happened with Carlton Point with that, right? They had to go back and do something over?
On Virginia Water last year, they did a coal during the cold season, and a few sections did not hold.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
that gets back to, just, that's why that one's on the list.
Okay, gotcha, cool.
Good question.
All right, and then after bowling, next we have the town hall parking lot area. It starts, yeah, obviously there's some issues with utilities that were put in. There's quite a few large sags, like a roller coaster out there. And then we have Waterstone Lane and the adjoining streets. It's the Old Town subdivision just up the road here. And that's in pretty serious condition as well. So what we did is we had Geotechnologies. They partnered with us, and they came out and they provided a subsurface investigation, and they also provided some repair recommendations. So for Granite Saddle, since the final lift has yet to be put on, what they did is they cored down into these streets, and Granite Saddle still had relatively good compaction, and all the structure was there. They recommended peeling that 1.5 inches of asphalt that is existing there off, proof rolling that, making sure that subgrade is in good condition, and then coming back and putting those final 3 inches back. So you put 1.5 inches down, and then you wait a day, and then put another 1.5 inches over top of that, getting your final lift. Bowling, Town Hall, and Waterstone, what they recommended is either full depth reclamation or full depth reconstruction. So full depth reconstruction would be taking all the asphalt off, removing about 8 inches of ABC stone or other material down there, proof rolling that subgrade, and then rebuilding that structure back up, bringing in about 8 inches of ABC and then your 3 inches of surface. And the other option would be full depth reclamation, which would be peeling that asphalt off. And then what you would do, as shown in this picture here, is you're sort of grinding up that existing material that is down there, and then you would be mixing in cement to stabilize all that material. You'd wait for that to cure, and then you'd come back and relay 3 inches of asphalt down.
All I hear is cha-ching.
So is that just Waterstone, or is it all the adjacent streets in Waterstone would have to?
It's the first phase.
Yes.
Waterstone, so it's in from 401 all the way back to, or I can't remember the street, but is that first phase of Waterstone, the older phase, and the adjacent cul-de-sacs.
So it's Waterstone Lane, and then I think it's 5 cul-de-sacs, if I remember correctly.
So the whole neighborhood would have to be redid.
That older stretch is these guys rated as your next worst streets.
Right.
Yeah, so before we go into the bid documents, I think we just want to touch on Waterstone a little bit. We did engineer estimates on what that would cost to bring that up, and it was over $500,000 to do that, just that section, and that doesn't include any stormwater, because we did that in one of the first phase of the mapping. So we also have that to take in consideration too, and we're still evaluating, does it need to be upsized or is it the flow? What do we need to do? And obviously you want to do your stormwater before you go in there and put down fresh asphalt. So there's a lot more to that subdivision that we're still investigating at this time to make sure we get it, and then we figure out a plan to how do we address that. And that goes back to, do we have to do stop gaps right now to make it usable, and then come back and figure out how do we fund the whole project for that section. So there's a lot that are still going that we're still investigating at this time for Old Town.
We did not bid that one.
Correct.
Due to the expense, but we're going to talk about that when we get in our budget process in a month. So we went to bid on.
So we did. We went to bid. We had a bid opening this afternoon at 2 p.m. We received 7 bids for the projects. The projects we prioritized was Bowling Drive, Granite Saddle, and back here behind Town Hall. So we're still digesting and going through those 7 bids and going over the numbers. We had a couple alternates. The alternates were the
Yeah, so the alternates we had as the full reconstruction, as Jacob explained, and then also the full depth reclamation. So we wanted to test the waters to see which ones would come back cheaper, so that we can provide the best bang for our buck from a municipal standpoint.
And so obviously we budget, I think, 125,000 this year for resurfacing projects. Obviously, it's going to be more than that. So what staff is going to do, will come back at the next board meeting, we'll have an agenda item for a budget amendment with our recommendations to cover those 3 areas at Bowling Drive, Granite Saddle, and Town Hall parking lot. In Town Hall parking lot's a separate budget line item that we already budgeted for the renovations in this town hall. So
I don't know if it's so obvious, we didn't tell the number. The engineer's estimate was over $250,000 on those projects, I think is the number. So we're evaluating the bids. I think they all should be done this year, personally. So meeting in March, we'll come back with a recommendation of the budget amendment and who to award the bid to, and then we'll be ready to talk about those a little bit more. But
We have we have Powell Fund funding
We have
available.
sufficient PAL funds this year, so it's a good use of PAL funds. And then we also had, for the town hall remodel, set aside some money for the back end here separately. So, we do have use, but you just heard that we're very fortunate, I'm gonna summarize, we're very fortunate to have the 89. Most all my communities in my past were 70 or 65 to 70, and they're behind the 8 ball trying to figure out how to keep it at 70 even. So this is a good starting point. What you do is you just kind of methodically stay away, and it's really interesting, you know, put money into preserving, and I'm a big fan of crack seal. I'm a big fan of chip seal. Nobody around here seems to be a big fan of it yet. Contract wise, these guys are in alignment. I'm not a contractor like this. But all those are very good to keep the life and the PCI up on your roads. Your street system's an investment. You have to treat it as such. So what we decide on as far as our goal, quote unquote, number wise, we don't really have to split it out too much because we have such, but there'll be a day that we need to have a serious conversation 5-10 years out of how we're going to make sure we're hitting what you think. And you're gonna hear this conversation every capital budget when we bring up streets, is here's why we're addressing this in our maintenance fund, in our capital fund, is to try and maintain a PCI of something. And you saw the money, and Powell doesn't cover what we need. We get about $160,000 a year in Powell money. And it grows incrementally as we grow. So the question will be, how do we supplement that as we maintain and rebuild? For instance, our next challenge will be water storm, and what's the plan for that? So we're looking forward to it. I hope that this was educational to you, and I hope that you all maintain it for years to come, because it should be used as a tool to know condition of the street, where you want to put your investment, and how do you want to maintain them.
So I have a question about the survey. The survey, once a road's repaired, is it like a living document? Does somebody update that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they recommend 4 to 7. When I had an inside engineering team, they go out and do a third community every year, keep it up. But what it does is, let's say we do 3 to 5 years, then you go reestablish it, they'll go reestablish that, and then it'll rearrange and change, and you get a credit
Okay.
for all the maintenance you did, because your street conditions have been improved. It'll modify the order,
Okay.
and it'll come out and spit out a new number for you.
Okay.
Work on the new ones.
So every time we redo it, you'll have a new kind of scenario of maybe a street is degrading sooner than it was previously for some reason. It's getting heavier traffic, so that street might move up.
Okay.
But those other ones that you put money in, investment in, have now are in better condition, and then your score reflects that.
Yeah.
Is that a good explanation?
Perfect.
So if we took Old Town Street, if we had maintained it the last 20 years, then it would be in good shape today. We wouldn't have to do, I mean, was it?
Technically, if you preserve it, it just keeps that life, you know, it doesn't improve it. It just preserves that grade. I think eventually you're going to need to address a street, but you're going to make sure that you're gonna, 30 years of life, it's gonna live its fullest life when you're preserving that street.
So if I'm listening correctly, even with preserving, it only gonna be a life about 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, a lot of stuff going on, in the subsurface as well as, we're just treating the surface. Ruts can form, those types of things where that's all subsurface activity, and you start seeing it at the surface level, but really you've got to, go down into the structure and fix it. So, it's, like I said, it's a living, breathing thing, and you just gotta kind of assess it, as you see it. But, and it's hard to say. I mean, I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong answer for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not an engineer, not like plain one. I'm gonna dig a little deeper into your answer. When we get into that project a little bit deeper, my engineering hat says it probably doesn't have adequate stormwater. Because what's happening is the water sitting, it's not shedding, and you can see exactly where the spots are.
Another one I'd like to bring up is Granite Falls Boulevard. We scraped the lines off and everything else with that, and now we're getting cracks along that and potholes where we scraped. So what we might have to do with that to make sure that doesn't cause more issues in the near future. I'd like us to look into that maybe.
Yeah, I think we'll report, let's talk about that, next month on that.
Okay.
Paul asked us in advance, and I've had an opportunity to think through it a little bit. The question is, in my mind, these gentlemen recommended going out and doing something before we burn those stripes off. But it was about a $60,000 to $70,000 project last year. As part of all that, we were already at budget or over budget on it, so we declined not to do that, but now you see the result.
Right.
So the question in my mind is, do we try, and this is for us to have this conversation, do we try and do an interim again with a fix, and or do we wait and try and overlay and combine it with potentially the balance of Granite Falls in the future, if that comes along sooner than later? And then you put it in one contract and get it done. I would only advise that if we know Granite Falls can be, there's an additional part of Granite Falls in the next 2 to 3 years. If it goes beyond that, I think we're gonna run into problems
Okay.
with the condition of that road right now. Your PCI indicates it's fair right now.
Right.
So it's gonna continue to deteriorate. What we need to monitor minimally is there's already like a pothole. And so we have to make sure we're filling, and we may have to do some crack sealing in the meantime.
Okay.
So something, if you look at the, I guess the map here, one end of it looks good, the other end looks fair, so something is happening from one end to the other, right? Because it's built about the same time, wasn't it, from end to end?
The old section was built at one time.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I was
yes.
thinking.
From Young Street to Granite Fall, to Rogers Road was built at one time.
In that watershed, there is a soggy spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
That could be the theory, because it is,
Which road are
it's more east to west.
Yellow one? Okay.
Light green, deep green.
That could be theory.
I think we had a slide for any other
Yeah,
questions?
just questions.
Is the
Obviously, y'all
age
been asking.
included on these? The age of the street?
So,
Because I heard you say a 30-year kind
so
of.
what we did was our GIS guy, who he kind of massaged the data for us. He helped get the XML file to where we could combine it and put it into Paver. He went into, I guess he just went and looked back at the historical data of Rolesville and just found when a lot of these streets were accepted by the town.
Yeah.
And we were then able to put that into Paver, give it a construction date, and that helped.
So it's behind, I got you.
Yeah, it sort of helped. It helped predict how it would degrade
Right.
in the future. So obviously, if it had been built more recently than another street, even if it had the same PCI at the time, the one that was older would deteriorated faster.
Gotcha. Okay.
So traffic load and everything was considered in your equation?
Yeah.
Paver takes that into consideration, yes.
You're able to put in a street rank, basically secondary, tertiary, or primary.
Any good news? Like, are there grants,
Well,
things that we
Great
can?
news is you got.
Well, yeah, the 89 is good.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
very,
say,
it's
that's
very,
great.
very
I'm
good.
like,
What, just for trivia, what was Smithfield?
Smithfield was 65.
There's the good news.
Yeah.
What was Oxford?
Because we're a new development.
I was looking for money.
And we're growing, and developers are
Yeah.
putting streets in, that gives us a leg up. For, I mean, it's temporary.
It's 30 years.
that's why we don't want to build roads.
There will be, in your current funding equation, there will be a time that you'll need to talk about how are you going to do
Yeah,
this.
the game plan. I recognize you all are the messengers. I do.
Well, we're just happy that we're here to talk about it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
y'all so
very
much.
much.
Thank you. Okay, JG, anything else on that one?
I think we kind of joined the two agenda
Yeah.
items together, so
Okay.
thank you, sir.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else, Kelly, on the resurfacing bids?
Ready to move on to the town hall remodel?
Okay. Next item is update on town hall remodel. I think you got that too, JG.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update. We do open bids tomorrow for the town hall renovations. So we will open those, and we're looking forward to seeing what those numbers come in as, and we're hoping they're hitting the mark that we're projecting. We had our pre-bid meeting a couple weeks ago. We've answered all questions and gotten those back out to those folks. So we're excited to see what we can get tomorrow. In our bid packet, we told the contractors that we would like to get started as early as March 2nd in 60 days to complete the project. So we're hoping by, was that end of April, we're back in here and we're functioning as normal again. Staff has already started talking about a game plan of how we're going to alternate town hall during construction. So right now we're looking at moving admin staff over to the Parks and Recreation side to make that your town hall entrance during the interim during construction, so we don't interrupt the citizens coming in and doing their daily business with the town. So we're being customer service minded as we go through this transition. And same thing with town board meetings. We know there's going to be some construction, and so we're use the community center as an entrance to come in for the board meeting, so we won't disrupt the day-to-day activities during the construction. It will be a little chaotic, obviously, under construction and working and under the same roof as construction, but I think we've got a pretty good plan that will carry us through.
Yeah, do you have a timeline on the plan?
We hope that they start March 2nd or around that frame, and we're giving them 60 days to complete the project.
Days.
Yes, sir.
How long is are the bids open? Is it just that afternoon?
We open the bids at 2 p.m., so they're all due by 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Oh, they're all due. It's already open. I got you.
It's open and they close it, so we'll actually open bids at 2 p.m. tomorrow.
I got you.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. The one other thing we wanted to kind of address, it was more of an alternate that we didn't put in the bid pack. It was kind of a unique situation, but as you know, we've had some issues with leaking in the roof, and I got a couple pictures here to show you if this works.
No pressure.
If you can see in this area right here, that's actually 2 holes that are in the right above my desk, and
They're like bullet holes. Bullet holes.
it may or may not have been waterfalls twice now in the last 6 months in my office, but we're surviving and it's making us stronger. But there's some areas that we noticed, and so one of the issues, and another one, as you can see looking up, this area here used to be insulation, and basically all that water was coming in through the screw holes and gotten so heavy that it finally just the tape let go in the insulation and it all just coming
What kind
out.
of roof do we have?
We have a metal roof.
Metal roof.
We do. And so the biggest culprit of what's causing this is the screws right here. And this is actually this is supposed to be rubber all the way around it, where, again, this roof is 10 years old, 12 years old, and that rubber's starting to dry rot away from the weather. And so really what we really need to do is almost replace all the screws with a larger screw with fresh. And so That's kind of what's happening. Is I went out there one day after a big rain, and outside the gutter there was, a handful of screws that have worked their way loose, and they're washing down through the gutter system, and that's the biggest culprit. That's causing the leaks that we've had, and then also we're replacing all the boots around all the vents as well. So we don't want to go up there and just caulk every screw, because you'll be right back in the situation. So
Right, yeah, if you're gonna do it, that's the way to do it.
is go back, replace with larger screw heads.
The larger one with the new.
With the new rubber.
Rubbers and the rubber boots.
Correct.
On your pipes. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yes, sir. So as the bids come in, we'll look at those numbers, and then we'll go back out and we'll look and get another assessment and numbers for that, and hopefully it all works out and it comes in on budget, so we don't have to come back for a budget amendment for anything. That's our goal. So that's just pretty much where we're at currently right now with the renovation. So we're excited to see what we get tomorrow. Thank you.
Good, any questions? Okay,
Thanks, JG.
Thank you.
next item, Utility Customer Assistance Program Interlocal Agreement. Amy, you gonna head that one up?
Yep, good evening, Mayor, Town Board. About 2 years ago from now, or 2 years ago previously, staff from the City of Raleigh Public Utilities Department came in to speak to you all about their program for water and sewer customers called the Utility Customer Assistance Program, or UCAP program. That program is designed to help economically disadvantaged customers of their water and sewer system, to help them pay their water bills, particularly those that are either under risk or have had their water disconnected. So after that presentation, an interlocal agreement was presented to the board, and it was approved. Funds were budgeted and allocated and sent to the City of Raleigh. $2,400 was approved for that purpose. And Raleigh has been maintaining that program ever since. There are only a few communities that actually participate in that program right now. City of Raleigh participates, the town of Garner participates, and then the town of Rolesville. So we've recently gotten a report back. I don't know if you've noticed that with that interlocal agreement, it actually expires at the end of June of this year. So we're at a point where we were going to reassess that program and see where we are. So we got a report back recently, which has informed us that none of those funds that were allocated have been used. As it turns out, Rolesville has a very low disconnection rate. And so no one has come forward to participate in that program.
Has it
So-
been advertised?
That was my question.
Yeah, so
I know people who could have used that.
there is some material out there, and all of their customer service representatives are familiar with this program.
I know, but I think it needs to be advertised in Roseville to the public at large, because I definitely know people who could have used this here money. So I don't think it's something that we should terminate after 1 year.
Well, and that's what's the purpose of the discussion, to see if you all have that interest to let the money continue to be there, continue efforts to publicize or other options, or if you want to go ahead and reclaim those funds. So that's the purpose of our whole conversation tonight, is to see where you all stand on that and what your desires are.
So it's no request for additional funds next budget cycle yet, is?
No, that $2,400 stays there, and it is used only for for town of Rolesville residents. But they'll sit and hold those funds.
Forever.
So it just rolls
Well,
over?
it just rolls over from year to year.
Interest on it?
I'm sorry?
Does it gain interest, by the way? I know it wouldn't be much, but I'm just asking.
I don't believe the interlocal agreement provides for any interest accumulation.
But we could request a refund and hold it for ourselves, so when they came to us, we could handle it.
I thought about that too. Is there a number? I mean, do you know how many turn-offs, electrical turn-offs there have been within the past 2
Disconnections.
years?
So
Disconnections, thank you. I was looking for that word.
water and sewer.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, the Assistant Utilities Director, because she looked into this, but she says, actually, in the last 3 months, there have been no disconnections within the with the town of Rolesville.
But since we've been members for 2 years, she didn't have any numbers for 2 years.
No, we could go back and do some more. She offered to go back and do some more research into that and get some more data. But they did mention that Rolesville does have one of the lowest disconnection rates of any of their jurisdictions that they cover.
I'm just wondering if in 2 years, how much of that money would have been used if, in fact, when people receive the notice that your utilities are going to be turned off, but there is an option that you could apply for if that's what they would have to do is apply. And is that something that happens?
Be good to know the number for 2
Yeah,
years.
it'd be good to know the process again, because I thought they make them aware somehow that there is funds available before they cut them off, I think. I can't remember, you came and did the presentation.
I remember.
And it goes through a evaluation process. They don't just give it either. I think they go through a
Right. Wake County actually does the assessment to
Right.
determine their eligibility. There are certain program guidelines for them
That's
to
right.
qualify to receive those funds.
So I think it's a good program. Maybe before we find out the information on the appeal process, or how do you appeal for the money? I think that's kind of what we're questioning. And I just don't remember what they said. I mean,
And we'd like to know residential, not commercial. Because if a commercial group, as we know, we've had some turnover on small businesses here, they should not be included in it.
I don't think it was ever for commercial anyway.
I know, but
I would say that it
the
wouldn't be
rate,
something.
we would want to know residential rate, not commercial rate, because we have had
Yeah, because if it's not
turnovers.
for commercial, listen,
Yeah,
I'm
that-
just
that-
saying.
that-
But I would say not to turn it over to the town to do it, because that's just more work for the town to get
Good point,
into, and I
good
don't think we
point.
need that.
Good point.
Sounds like you want more information, which is
Yes.
fine.
Yeah.
And we'll get you more. And
Specifically, how many disconnections have there been since May 2018? And then how's it advertised? Because I know customer service. Everybody that calls, sometimes you get a great answer, sometimes you don't. I went to Chick-fil-A this morning, wasn't good. Just saying. So,
and then probably most important is, what's the criteria for eligibility?
yeah.
Right.
Because
and
when I
is
was-
it-
I'm sorry,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead, Michelle.
When I was saying that I know people who have had challenges with their bills, what happened is that different organizations and groups have stepped in to help them.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna
I'm
say
just
that
saying,
too.
versus using that money, versus those groups putting that money there, if there's money available through this program, I think they should tap into this first. So those organizations can help other people who may need help in one area or another.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity.
Sure.
If for some reason, we said to go ahead and get their money refunded, is it something that we could reapply to?
Yeah, I think there's always the opportunity to re-engage with this program. They're not terminating this program in terms of their system, because they do have other jurisdictions where folks are using the funds. So I think we could always re-engage at a later point.
They've actually taken it to a different level. We're part of the original effort, and due to turnout, quite frankly, the other merchant communities did not participate except for Gardner and Raleigh. Raleigh's actually broadened their program out because they do have higher use. They're supplementing now with donations, so they're actually promoting a donation program for private companies for Raleigh citizens. That's how they're creating their program now, a little bit more than general than the enterprise funds for the Raleigh budget. But I don't know why the rest of the merger communities didn't participate or not. I think Gardner does get some use. But they just brought up a meeting we had with Raleigh Water last month saying, you're not getting any use, we're not certain you are, so we thought we'd just let you know, and then we'll get you more information and see what you think you want to do with it.
Definitely have to come up with a way to advertise it more, though.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Next item, review of amended hours, days of construction noise ordinance. And I think you're going to do that, Kelly?
Sure. In your packet is a memo, and in that memo is the amendment that you approved as a board. I put the date in this, I don't remember, but late spring. Felt like it was May, I think, of 2019 when we we spent some work session time on this topic, and then ultimately settled on an ordinance, and I think the ordinance was approved on a split vote, if I remember correctly, to what's included. We did a couple things with the previous ordinance that used to be just for residential addressed demolition, alteration, repair of any building, addressing noise is the purpose. The residential business district between the hours of 7 and 6 on weekdays is what the old ordinance said. The new ordinance that you adopted modifies that to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Which is, I don't know if that's true, because now I look at that, I think we thought it was 8 a.m.
Fought for 10.
I think it was. It seemed like I made the motion and Paul seconded, and some of y'all wanted 10 and I wanted 8.
Is it 10?
No,
I know it's on
No.
the
Somebody
Yeah,
said
so I don't know if we,
I think you need to
I
look
don't
it
know
up.
if this is right, you know, I look
All
at it.
right, I think you need to revisit that.
I think we need to go back and look at the minutes.
Yeah,
because
you do.
I'm pretty certain it's 8.
Yeah, I am too.
I've been telling everybody 8 in this highlight.
Yep.
And so now I just read it again.
Yeah, and we've had some.
Isn't it funny how you can look at something, know you read it, and knows what it says, and you go, wait, that's not right. I am certain it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday.
For regular construction noise, and then blasting is different.
That's right.
Yes.
And so blasting also though, is separate permit.
Yep.
And hammering and drilling, is a little bit different, is that rock crusher that sometimes they bring into site, and such. But for blasting, you do need to get a permit. You don't need a permit for rock crusher or the piling dry.
As long as it's done during those hours
Why is it
approved.
included? It looks like it's included in that. Am I missing something?
That's where we changed it to 10 a.m. and 9 a.m. for those.
Blast,
Yes.
am I reading it right? Blasting, Lord, I can't talk.
Even though-
Hammering, drilling?
Right. Hammering
Of
is
rock.
the pylon,
Yeah.
the chipping out of rock that happens in many subdivisions where you have to chip out rocks for foundations.
So that's 9 to 6 during the weekday, and then 10 to 6 on the weekends.
Yes.
Gotcha. Or on Saturday. Gotcha.
I know of at least 3 complaints I put in the memo. A email from a citizen who talked to me yesterday after upon seeing this on the agenda. If you bear with me, it came in at 5 o'clock today. I could quickly do an overview of it. It comes from Jane Zabore. She lives up at Carlton Point, 736 Strathwood Way. She says, when my husband Jim and I purchased our home in Carlton Point, we expected construction around us. We knew there would be inconveniences, including noise, dirt, traffic, congestion, trash blown into yard, loud music, etc. However, none of these came close to the experience of a pneumatic rock crusher operating for an entire day and 2 previous evenings, only a short distance from our home, about 100 to 150 feet away. On that Saturday last July, I called Mayor Eagles and left you a message. And I phoned the police, who explained there was no ordinance to effect or limit such work. We were well acquainted with the rock crusher for nearby culvert work months earlier, which the developers opted to blast instead. The rock crusher also was used briefly for house foundations on our street. Such rock crushing was necessary. However, the work nearest was optional, only done to regrade the backyard facade. When I spoke with the developer sometime later, even they cannot imagine why a builder or landscaper would do this. There are many more lots to be built here and all over Rolesville. Please act to prevent further optional use of rock crusher. If you cannot, please limit its use, the duration, and require advance notice to residents. So she takes a little bit step further in this request.
Kelly, obviously, we need to make the police department aware of these ordinances, but these people need to be fined when they do not obey these ordinances, and it needs to be substantial. And I don't know where I got it from, but I heard somewhere where the maximum fine was $50. That's a joke.
I thought we were gonna talk about that tonight as well.
Yeah. I think we need to add another zero to it.
I think we had
And I think that would probably get their attention.
They read the fine print.
I need to learn a little bit more, but there is a minimum or maximum, I think we can use it. Do you know the answer?
The answer, generally, not knowing what the rule is, particularly as to this ordinance, is that the council should adopt a schedule of fines for various offenses that are covered by the code, and there's a maximum fine of $500. So you could have a $5 fine and a $250 fine or a $500 fine for various offenses that you might have in your ordinance. I don't know, Robin, whether you know when we last maybe set a schedule of fines. I don't know.
Can you go from 5 to 500? Or are you saying you have to take steps in between?
The board would establish a schedule of fines for various offenses contained within the code.
Okay.
My guess is that has been done, but probably hasn't been reviewed in some time.
In a while.
Typically just doesn't. And the reason why is that civil penalties particularly can be the wrong tool for the job. That is, many times, something like a noise violation is a one-time circumstance for that particular violator and does nothing for the offended party. So unless we were to develop a reputation as the town that hammers people who make noise with hammers, to use that pun all the way through, tends not to work as well as making sure an officer gets out there to tell them to botch on the roadway.
No, but that happened last year and it kept going on though. They said after the cops would leave, they would start back. So that's not working.
Yeah, that was that.
Yeah.
Well, that might
I'm
be-
just
that
saying,
might
that's
be
an
a whole
example.
That might be a whole different discussion.
Where was this at?
The church.
At the church.
That caused all this. I think our position, Chief's here in the room, but our position is, we get a call, we go address it now.
Right.
We've talked about that. It's not to be, and that's what we advise citizens now, is when they call us, our first reach is to the contractor, if we know the contractor or developer. I've done that a couple times. But the second is, tell the citizens, you're our eyes and ears, call the police department immediately, and they will respond and address it. It is a $50 fine. I like the thought that maybe we need to talk, if you ask us to, let's talk about our fine schedule. I'd love to spend some time on that. I've done it my time here. If you'd like to spend some time on that, we could do that and report back what our fine schedule is and what we can't do.
I'm sure the chief is also aware that there's also a criminal offense for violations of the ordinance, which would constitute a Class 3 misdemeanor. That's always another tool that's potentially out there for a board that finds that they have real problems, or certain parties who are repeat offenders or general ne'er-do-wells in the community. So there are tools out there, but we would have to work through how we want to employ them.
I would hate to see our police going back and forth to calls like this, because pretty much they know $50 here, $50 there. So I think whatever decision we make, it has to be serious enough. There should not all these little steps in between like we've had in
First
the
and
past.
second, third violation, such.
Yeah, just get it done.
Let
And
them know up front.
they have better things to do, and it's really like a waste of taxpayers' money to have them doing that.
That's a policy schedule item for the board through the recommendation of the staff.
I like the fee schedule. Visit the fee schedule, and for now, it sounds like communication is the key. Communication up front, here's the deal, communication to the homeowners, and what the policy is, and clarifying those hours if we need to.
Even to the builders when they present their projects, like, listen, part of that
Right.
application is, this is what your fees are if you don't obey the rules.
So,
Yeah.
and I briefly skimmed my memo, but we did when we adopted this, we did do reach, notified all known builders and developers of the change. We did post on the building permit. I don't know if we continue that dialogue over time, if it comes in, probably should. discussion, and I proceeded to move along to my workout at the gym. But it's had conversation, they knew there was some noise ordinance, they didn't know there was a modification of weekly. And that's a sub,
Communication.
right, it's a sub of another contract.
Yeah.
And
But that's what I was gonna say. You said builders and developers, but they're not the ones actually necessarily doing the work. So I really still think it's communication, and you've got to hold the builders and developers accountable for
You,
the
you
use.
have, because it's the subcontractors.
Yeah, they
that's
don't
doing
know.
it. No, it's not the general contractor, especially you can't find a general contractor on a Saturday.
Right.
Usually it
Monday
goes
through
first,
Friday.
and the developer is an absentee figure anyway. It's usually the subcontractor that causes the problem.
Communication.
so, for now, keep on monitoring, keep on enforcing, go back and have a conversation about the schedule of fees.
Keep on communicating, all parties involved.
Yeah, and I don't, maybe we need to look at the blasting, hammering, and drilling on Saturdays. Maybe we don't need to do that on Saturdays. I think that's that complaint that you got from
Right.
Carlton Point, and you know, I remember her case. It was landscapers that did it.
Yep.
You know, landscapers putting sod down, and they was out there.
Blasting rock. They did.
No, they actually crush them
Hammering it.
somehow, so you could level the sod out. I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if this is the time for that discussion item, but at times, weekend blasting is what is generally considered the better practice, given what adjacent land uses there may be. A school, for example, or some other use, a place of employment. The blasting company would want to use the weekend to reduce the number of people who may be around.
I agree with that, too.
So
We could request a permit in those cases, couldn't we?
Yes, we do have a blasting program. And we can include, we could ask and talk and see if it includes other type of category permits in here that are like hammering and drilling. I think you want to make it just for weekends, because I know that happens. If we get into permitting all those other uses,
Right.
the line might be pretty big. Let me think about the Saturday piece a little bit more. I'm not quite prepared to answer if there's more improvements to be done on that or not. Could be, potentially.
And let's make sure we all know what the hours are really
Yeah.
as they are today.
Yeah, I apologize. Yep, I'm gonna make sure.
We like 10 o'clock, though. At least I do.
I think it was like between 8 and 10. I know I was in the middle and that got wiped out. So, but I can't remember if it was 8 or 9. I think it was 8.
I think it was 8.
I do recall some blasting. It had to be near the village. I don't think it was in the village, but I remember feeling it and experiencing it with no notification that it was going to happen. I was just like, what was that?
It was
'Cause
in Carlton Point.
Yeah, it must have been
Yeah,
Carlton
I've never
Point.
felt it, but my wife has. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm out work during the day, but it happened during the
It
day.
throws you- it throws you for a
Go
loop.
Go check the foundation.
So communication, I think, is super, super critical all the way down the line.
Well, we
Okay.
probably ought to just, when, you know, like, Salt Lake Forest with the Wacos came out, they're blasting, they publicized it, so
Oh.
they just need to actually publicize
If it's a large project, yeah,
blasting improvements like that.
makes sense.
Okay. It's time to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I think we beat that.
You want me to make it?
Go ahead, Jackie. You know, don't let me make
Motion?
it.
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to second it. Hurry up.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
got a
Rob.
motion.
Did you have something else to
Huh?
say?
No,
Was there anything else?
no. I got a motion second. Anybody want any closing comments, any other discussion? This is your time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.